Hello and welcome to this Get Untethered Hangout on Air. I am Stacey Harmon and I'm here with my co-host Kristi Willis. Good morning, Kristi.
Hello.
And we are the co-authors of Untethered with Evernote Tips and Workflows for Independent Entrepreneurs, and you are watching our monthly Hangout on Air where we expand upon the topics and issues that we discuss in the book as well as the ongoing evolution of Evernote. And we're thrilled to have this topic today because this is a new one since we first authored the book, and it absolutely does evolve the workflows and present some new opportunities. And as Kristi eloquently says, work chat and is kind of a who moved my cheese moment. And we're going to address kind of how work chat works and how it can be effectively deployed in workflows. We've got some great client case studies as well as some really clear communication from Kristi about how these sharing and collaboration features work. So I'm going to get started with, let me just show you guys a little bit about how to reach us if you have questions. And then Kristi, before I do that and screen share, you want to show us your fun little toy back there?
If you've been watching our Hangouts, you know that I've been promising myself forever that I would get this beautiful scanner. I'm so excited. So there will be a scan party at my house this weekend.
That's right. Yeah. So we get very excited about funny things here at the in the Get Untethered community, but that is a big milestone, and I'm going to have to come over and experience that for myself. I'll be there. So let's kind of get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so you guys get a little bit of information about how to reach us and kind of how today's going to work. We're your hosts. This is Stacey and Kristi. Those are our Twitter handles, which are great ways to reach us. If you include the Get Untethered hashtag, which is in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, we'll certainly have a better opportunity to answer you in live time here on the webinar. And afterwards, also a great way to reach us. And as we mentioned, this is our book, the Untethered with Evernote book. It's available in 2 spots. You can get it at our website in EPUB, PDF, Mobi, and print form. That's getuntethered.com. It's also one of 3 books that's available on the Evernote market. It has a different cover, but it's the same great content and available in EPUB form there. So we encourage you to check that out if what we're discussing and our style really appeals to you. You can get a lot of great power user tips and workflows out of the book. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Kristi to give you guys, today is going to work. She's going to give you the skills and clarification about how sharing works in Evernote today. And then she's going to bring it back to me, and I'm going to show you how I'm actually deploying and how Kristi and I are deploying some of these new features and skills in actual workflows to establish efficient collaboration in our day-to-day lives. So with that, Ms. Willis, would you like to take the screen share, or you want me to play Vanna?
I will be happy to take this screen share.
And also, while she does that, we have had some questions even prior to this session that indicate, that we're going to answer throughout this. But we also have a Q&A pod on the right-hand side, and we will answer your questions live. We've also built in to the presentation some stop points where you can ask questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. So we know there's a lot of questions, some confusion about this topic, so we want to be sure we get them all answered, and we'll be doing that throughout. So with that.
Great. Thanks, Stacey. So I'm going to talk about the basics of sharing and sort of how you approach it using different techniques, whether you're sharing a note or a notebook. And for me, the big question about sharing always is, are they an Evernote user? If they are, we're going to be sharing through Work Chat, which is the new feature that can feel a little discombobulating in the beginning. If you haven't been using it, it is different than the share that we had before. But the nice thing about Work Chat is it allows us to have a conversation around what we're sharing and to be able to put context around it and be able to collaborate, and I'll show you some examples of that. And that's going to let us share by view, by edit, or edit and invite, which means that the other person we're sharing with can edit and invite others. If the person that you're sharing with is not an Evernote user, Then we have a couple of different ways that you can share. You could share through view, which would mean that they can view the note even without having an Evernote account. You can email the note, share a public note link, or a public notebook link. And so I'll kind of walk you through the examples of how you are going to do each of these different items. But really, I want to know, is the person on the receiving end using Evernote or not? Because how I'll share with them will be a little bit different. We'll start with sharing a note with an Evernote user. So when I am in a note, in that top right corner, I have a share button, and I can click there to be able to share the note. And what that used to do is give you some options about sharing the note. What it does now is take you into work chat, where you can enter the name of the person or their email address, or if you have several people, you can enter several items there. And then at the bottom, you can select how you want to share it with them. Can they view it? Can they edit it? Can they edit and invite others? And then in that bottom text box, you would type whatever message you want them to see, and then you would send it. And if they are in Evernote, it'll pop up in their work chat. And if they haven't looked at it in a while, or they're not an Evernote user, they'll get that by email. As you are sharing, by default, it's going to give you that option to share one note. However, this is a great tip, and it's not something that I figured out until someone else told me. I think somebody at Evernote shared this with us. When I have that work chat window up, if I want to share a second note, I can do that by dragging the note into that work chat window. And so you can see in this example, I shared 2 notes with Stacey through this work chat rather than just one. When I send that work chat message, it's going to show up that I have a work chat up in the top left corner of the Evernote screen, and I can see who the work chat is from and click there. And then you can see the history of our conversations. So you can tell that Lillian and I have been using this quite a bit. We're actually really enjoying this as we work together, since we're rarely in the same place during the week. Work chat has replaced having to text each other or email each other all the time, and allows that to be centered in Evernote, which has been really nice. And even when I'm not on Evernote on my desktop, I have it set up so that work chat is pinging me on my phone. So when Lillian sends me, or Stacey sends me a new work chat, it's showing up in my notifications on my phone. And then I can go in and see that work chat there as well, which has been really, really helpful in being able to see those messages there. As you're working with work chat, you will notice as you're going in and seeing the different work chat messages, sometimes it'll have your picture next to it, and sometimes it will just be the first letter of your name. You can actually add your picture to your work chat through your profile, and you do that in your account settings and just set up your profile photo if you want your picture to show up rather than the letter. I have a couple of clients who are like, I actually think I like the letter better, so you could just leave it like that. But if you do want your photo, you can do that in your account settings. So work chat is how we're going to share a note with an Evernote user, but what if the person I'm sharing with doesn't have Evernote, or I don't know whether they have Evernote or not? Well, then I'm going to pick a different option, and I have a couple, and one is to email the note. I actually have several clients who don't use Evernote. I'm trying, but I do need to be able to share things with them. So instead, on the Mac, I right-click on the note or command-click on the note, choose More Sharing, and I email the note to them. And on the PC, you can see Stacey's given us that great PC view over on the right. I can click Share and Copy to Email, and it copies the contents of the note into an email and sends it to that person. So if I don't know whether they have Evernote on the receiving end, I could email it. And then the other option is I could create a public link to it. And by creating a public link, anybody with that link will be able to see that note. You may not do this very often. I do this in my writing. I have a list of my favorite places in town, my Austin restaurant recommendations that I kind of keep throughout the year. And I put that in a public note that I can post on my blog, send out on Twitter or Facebook, however I want to share that. So being able to share a public note can be helpful. Just remember, anybody with that URL can get to that note. So you want to be kind of judicious about what you're sharing that way. And that is how you can share a note. So very helpful. Sometimes I don't want to share just a note. I want to share the entire contents of a notebook. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do that as well. Again, sharing a notebook, when I'm in the notebook list, I'm going to click that share icon or the work chat icon as it is now. And again, I'll enter the person's name or email address. The notebook will be listed there. I can change the rights, and then I can type in the message that I want to the person I'm going to share with. Again, you can share 2 notebooks at once. If you have the work chat window, you can drag the second notebook into that window to share it. You can see here I was sharing a couple of notebooks with Lillian. And again, that's a nice, easy way to be able to do that. So again, that message is going to show up in work chat. That person now has access to that notebook. Easy way to share. Again, I know it's a little different than the way we used to share before, but that work chat allows me to give context and allows us to have that continuing conversation around that notebook. But what if the person I'm sharing with is not an Evernote user? Then, oh, somebody said, is there a way to make the screen bigger? I'm not sure if this will do it or not. And let's see, Lily, does that help?
Clear for me.
It's clear for you. Is it bigger for you, Stacey?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, Lily. And we will post these screenshots to the Hangout afterwards, as well as to our Facebook group. So if you want to be able to go back through the presentation, we make sure the video is fully available, but I apologize that it was showing up as small. So what if the person is not an Evernote user and I want to share a notebook? Well, you can still do that. You can publish the notebook, and again, this basically creates a public URL for that notebook, and anybody with that URL can see it. There is a limitation. You can only publish a personal notebook. So if you are an Evernote business user, and we are going to talk a lot about Evernote business next month, but if you are an Evernote business user, you cannot publish an Evernote business notebook. You can only publish a personal notebook. You won't even see that option on the menu for the folks who are have business notebooks. Once you choose Publish, you'll see this permissions screen pop up, and you'll be able to select Publish there, and then it will give you a link that you can use. A link that you can use, and you can copy and paste that out to anybody that you want. And you can change the link if you don't like the way the link looks. You can edit it there with the pencil. So this is how you can share a notebook with a non-Evernote user. Lily asked a great question about sharing notebooks. If you're sharing a notebook with an Evernote user through work chat, that notification is going to pop up in their work chat window, and they'll also get an email message that the notebook has been shared with them. So they will get an option in their email to see that that's been shared. So we did have a couple of questions from folks before the Hangout, and if you have other questions as we're working here, I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger for Lily still. So just a couple of questions that came up from users before the Hangout. The first is there a way to share without work chat? If you want them to be able to do edits and be able to share fully, you will be doing that through work chat. So that is the new share. Work chat's the new share in Evernote. If you are sharing with non-Evernote users, then you can email share public links to both notes and notebooks and that type of thing. So share, just remember, work chat's new share. So I know it's different, but it does give us that ability to be able to have that collaborative conversation around the things that we're sharing. So The other question that we got was from Kendall Young, and she asked if you can unshare a note, and you can. It is not obvious how you would do that, and you don't unshare through work chat. The way that you unshare is what I did is either you could do it through the share menu, either on the note, or if you are going through the shortcut menu on the note by using your alternate mouse button or the command click on the Mac, then you can choose permissions. So if you've shared something previously, this permissions item will show up. If you're on the PC, instead of permissions, it says modify sharing. And when you choose that, you get to see a list of who you have shared that note with and what rights they have. And so from here, I can change those rights, or I could delete that user. So if I didn't want to share this white paper with Natanya anymore, I could click the X there to delete her from those permissions. So if you want to change the rights or you want to unshare something, you want to go into the permissions or the settings for that note. Again, you can use the share pop-up menu to modify the sharing, or the command click on the Mac and change the permissions for that note. So a little different view for the PC and the Mac. If you have other questions as we're going along, feel free to ask them in the Q&A pod. And with that, Stacey, do you have anything that anything else that you think that we need to hit that are a part of the basics there?
Well, some of the questions that I just want to explicitly address are, can we turn work chat off?
And no, we can't.
Okay, yeah. So that's really key to understanding. It's really just how Evernote is facilitating more efficient communication. And I like to think of it as an enhancement to my dashboard here. Evernote's my dashboard for my collaboration and such. So, you know, work chat's just the way it goes. And if I need to, as Kristi has clearly stated, share with someone outside the organization, I just have to be aware of how I can do that. You still have the same options that you had prior to work chat. They've just been moved. So I thought that was a great tutorial.
Well, and you know, Stacey, when I think about it, if I was going to share something with you in the physical world, I wouldn't just dump it on your desk or your doorstep. I would talk to you about why I'm sharing it with you and why that's important. And so work chat gives us that place to do it without having to email each other constantly. The fact that I have work chats waiting on me will show up in my email, but not all those work chat messages are going to show up in my email. So I like it as a way to get that context that we need around what we're sharing with one another.
Absolutely, yeah. And for users who are in Evernote a lot, it's a real asset when you're collaborating with a team that is all utilizing Evernote. So it becomes really powerful. So
absolutely.
Hopefully that helps clarify for the viewing audience kind of the parameters around sharing and collaboration. And so now what I'm going to do is share my screen with you guys and move into some use cases for how we're actually deploying these items, and I'm going to start with one that is representative of how Kristi and I are using Evernote to collaborate. So many of you probably need to get feedback on a project and have multiple people contribute to the conversation or the project in order to kind of move your work forward. So in one use case, this would fall under the parameters that everybody that you're collaborating with is part of your internal team, and they're all using Evernote. Okay, so this is the use case here, and in this case, I'm going to use the blog post that Kristi and I do for the Get Untethered website. So just a little bit of background to bring you up to speed on what we are doing. We're using a Evernote app partner called Pistachio, which allows us to create a note in Evernote and put it into a particular notebook. And when we tag that note with the word published, or the tag published, it automatically appears live on the website. Okay, so that's the background. Now, obviously, Kristi and I are partners in this endeavor, and we like to proof each other's work and collaborate on the content for the blog posts. And we work on that between us, as well as with Lillian, our assistant and project manager for the blog and the book. And so what happens is when we do a post, which is the note that's in Evernote on the left, and we publish it, it's automatically appearing on the website, okay? So that's the background. Now, before Work Chat, what we were doing to manage this process is we would put a draft of the blog post into Evernote, into the folder, and we wouldn't tag it, and we would make changes or compose our first draft of the blog post. And then we would, Kristi, let's assume that this is the one that I was writing. Kristi would have to either rely on the notifications, which I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen up here, but there's a little notifications indicator in the interface, and she would have gotten a notification that there was a new note and modifications to the note in that shared notebook. And we found that hard to stand out, because the reality is all the changes that happen in Evernote end up in that notifications window, and you really, as a power user, miss those notifications. So we knew that, and I would actually have to take the step of emailing the note to Kristi with some comment and pushing the note to her to make sure that she saw it in her email. Okay, so that was our process before. It worked fine. We were able to obviously effectively collaborate, and that was what we were doing. Now what we do is different. Oh, here's a little notification I put actually in my comment there. That's helpful. Okay. Now, well, before I get to now, here's a repeat of that. So this would be what the note would look like, and then Kristi would reply to me. So you can see I'd send her the note, it would insert the note, and she would reply and talk about any changes that she had made. And what was really happening is that our project communication and management was happening kind of on the email side. And if we wanted to actually maintain this communication history with the project, we'd have to forward the email back into Evernote and file it in the project folder. So that's kind of how it was working before. How it's happening now is that we're shifting that into Evernote. So using Work Chat, you can see here, same process. On the right, I am sharing my draft of my blog post, and we are having a conversation about that all right here within Evernote. And when they click on the link, they're taken directly to the note so that they don't have to ever leave Evernote, and we're generating fewer emails and having a history of the conversation amongst the group of us right here in Evernote. Okay.
Can I just say how important this became to me when I realized that, because I got my notification from Google about how many emails I was getting a month, like being able to cut down those emails even just a little bit was huge.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful, and keeps everything in one spot, and gives you an easier access to the history of the conversation also. So I agree, totally.
Yeah.
And as, again, pointing out, it puts the link in, and then they can just click right straight through to the link in Evernote, or the note in Evernote. All right, and then here's a variation on that. This is kind of a pro tip. We're sharing notes and notebooks, as Kristi has shown you, in Evernote, but don't forget that you can share any kind of hyperlink. So this is a link to a Dropbox file. I sent a work chat to Kristi and Lillian this morning that was to a Facebook permalink for a post. You can include a web address. You know, these kinds of things can all happen directly within Work Chat, which is really, really functional and helps, again, to reduce the amount of emails. And I mean, I should ask how many of you are happy with the amount of emails you get, right? Nobody's going to raise their hand. It's a little unruly, so we would like to thank Evernote for helping us with that. All right, so if you have any questions about that, feel free to put them in the sidebar. I see Lily's question here that she's got several work chats with him with the same note. Why is that? I don't know. It sounds kind of like just a hiccup to me in the interface. I don't know if Kristi has any additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that happen. Not that it's not possible, but I haven't seen it happen. I feel like that's a bug, and I'm wondering if refreshing the install would fix that.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation as well, and then possibly sending a support ticket to Evernote. That is not the that's not the behavior that we experience, so it sounds like a hiccup. Okay, so then let me move on to the reality of how I collaborate on a daily basis with my assistant in Evernote using work chat. This is how my assistant and I don't always work in the same place, you know, but we will use Skype to have video chatting with each other, and I video chat via Skype with clients all the time. And then we have a shared notebook. This one is our coordination notebook. And you can see here we're actually discussing, this is a screenshot of us discussing a note. We have the video through Skype. We both have the note pulled up. And really important is, notice this little presence icon is what Evernote calls it. So her name's Emma, and she doesn't have an avatar, as Kristi had shown you how you can add. So it defaults to an E for the first letter of her name. And you can see that she and I are both looking at the same note, or she is involved in that note. This is also a feature that Evernote has launched since the Evernote conference in October, where the note is actually locked so that only one person can be editing it at a time. So that's an enhancement that keeps us from having conflicting changes. If you're a longtime Evernote user, you know that phrase. And this indicator will tell me if the note is locked or not based on the collaboration. And as she moves out of the note, then I have the opportunity to edit the note, and she can see my presence icon there as well. So this is really how we get work done collaboratively using work chat and supplement it with Skype. Kristi, do you use a similar process, or how does this work for you?
We are typically, Lillian and I are typically not necessarily editing notes at the same time, but when we do, so sometimes we'll be on our weekly checklist or working from a note. It is nice to be able to see that presence there. I did just have a thought, and I don't know the answer to this question. Maybe I'll look it up while you're doing this piece of it, is if there are multiple people in a note, so if there were 3 or 4 of us in a note at the same time, if you can tell which person has it locked. You
actually can, yes.
Yeah,
so
great.
You can see the difference is that say there's 3 of us in a note, I would see 2 icons, 2 presence icons, and the icon of the person that has control or locked ownership of the note has a little, like a moving circle, like a gray circle around the perimeter of their icon. So that's
like they should have a crown or something, but a gray circle is good.
Yes. Yeah, Evernote didn't consult us on what the icon should be.
I am the king of this note right now.
That's right. Okay, and to Lily's question, so you only have 1 chat window between yourself and my assistant. I have 1 chat window per conversation I'm having with people. So if all the notes that I go to share with my assistant Emma are going to fall sequentially into that one-on-one conversation we're having. If I pull in another person, say I pull Kristi into the conversation, it will start a new chat window. So the chat windows are specific to the number of users that are involved in that particular chat. And if you repeat that group of people, it will continue the conversation on in that chat window. Hopefully that clarifies that.
Yeah, so Stacey and I have a chat. Stacey, Lillian, and I have a chat. Stacey, Lillian, Emma, and I have a chat. Those are separate chat windows for those groups of people.
And the conversations just continue on depending on who I'm discussing with.
Yep.
Okay, so that kind of covered the Q&A for sharing internally. Kristi, do you have anything to add there?
I don't think so.
Okay, so what I'm going to do then is move on to the other side of the coin, which is how do we share with non-Evernote users. And I'm going to give you case studies under the 2 features that Kristi illustrated for you. The first is public links. So these are real practical examples of how I'm using and my clients are using public links to communicate with people. So I have a client that I'm working on some social strategy, and what I do is I reiterate and take notes during the meeting. And I embed documents in that note, and I create a task list and kind of a summary of our meeting. And then my client, because this is a social media discussion that we're having, she's not an avid Evernote user. She's never going to be an Evernote user. It's not in her wheelhouse, but I want to communicate with her. I create a public link, and you're seeing where you do that in the Mac view right here, to the notes from our meeting. And I compose an email. And in this email, and this is the actual email, I actually insert the hyperlink text. Let me clarify something. When I do this copy public note link, what it's doing is putting a permalink on the clipboard. Okay? It's putting a link to the note in Evernote on a clipboard, and I'm pulling it over into the email, and I'm inserting that link behind some text in an email. And it says, here's a link that you can bookmark, so I'm telling her she can bookmark it, and I'll continue to update it with relevant materials as we work together, okay? So when she clicks on that link, it's taking her into a browser, and she's able to see this document. And you can see that it's exactly the document that I was creating in my note. It has an embedded Excel document and also discusses some of the content that we had during our meeting. So she's able to see that at any time. She could just create a bookmark for it, or she could keep my email and hyperlink over to it. Very, very functional. I don't have to resend it to her. Again, notebooks are going to, public links. Those notes are going to remain with the same link, so you can modify the note, and the screen refresh on the public link will update the content of the note. So very, very helpful for not only this, but a host of purposes. You could do checklists and status reports and all kinds of things with non-Evernote users. All they have to do is either bookmark it or refresh, and they'll see the current status. They don't need a new link.
Yep. And so the strategy there for using the link instead of emailing is that that's a dynamic note that the content will change over time, and so you want them to be able to go and see the new content versus email is a snapshot of that moment, right?
Absolutely, yes. And the other thing that's really helpful, another use case, I use this for my handouts when I'm doing training. I will actually put in hyperlinks or graphics that brand to me and my company, contact information. So again, it's like building a web page that's dynamic, as Kristi has stated, that people have access to at any time in the most current state via that link.
That's great.
Okay. So Evernote feature 2, emailing notes. So sometimes we want to actually send them a note via email because it's going to be more assured that they're going to see it. And this is an example with a PR client that I work with. So they have a process where they are actually sending their clientele links to all of the PR that they secured for them over the course of a week. Okay? And they send this to them on a weekly basis. So what we did is we created a note in Evernote with some branding. That top part is just a graphic image of the client logo. And we created some web clippings. We merged them. That's all advanced stuff for those of you that are on the call. We cover it in other webinars, how to kind of do that. And have this note in Evernote. Then, on a weekly basis, the client will email the note to their client. And they'll just go to Note, More Sharing, Email a Copy. So again, this is the most common question Kristi and I get. Where did my email note function go? It's just moved. It's under Note, More Sharing, Email a Copy on the Mac. On the PC, Kristi showed it to you. You can skip back a couple slides if you need to. And they email the note to the client. And what it does is it comes in via Gmail or whatever email client the person has. And you can see here that the entire content is right there in the note. And the beautiful part about this process is the hyperlinks in the email are active. So their client that hired them to get PR for them can simply click on that link that's embedded in the email note and be taken directly to the website of the PR article for that particular week. And again, there's branding, there's functionality, there's all kinds of great things that reflect well on the PR company servicing their client, and they simply use this email link feature in order to bring that to their clients. Any thoughts on that, Kristi?
No, I think that's great, and I love those two examples because the first one is something dynamic that's going to change, so that link makes more sense, and the second one is that weekly snapshot that is not going to change. It will be static, and so emailing it makes more sense. I love those as kind of two contrasts to that.
Yeah. Okay, so those are our case studies, and hopefully you have a much clearer idea of how Work Chat is working, how you would share within the system, and you've seen some case studies that give you some ideas about how and why you might choose one or the other. We have a little bit more time for questions. I see Lily's question here. So you can not start a new chat window with the new topic.
So, Stacey, I thought it might be helpful to just share my screen and show Lily what my work chat window looks like.
Sure.
Is that okay with you?
Fine with me. I think it'd be immensely helpful.
So Lily, I'm just sharing my screen. Can you see my Evernote business okay, Stacey?
No, not yet. I see a black screen. Okay, there you are.
Okay. So this is my Evernote installation, and Lily, what you should see here in this example is that each of my chats is with a different person or group of people. So you can see the example of, as we were preparing for last month's Google Hangout, the chat was me, Stacey, Chris, and Lillian, so we had a different window. But this week, where it was just Lillian, Stacey, and me, we have this continuing conversation that's actually been going on for a long time because we work together so much. So you can see how if it's just between Stacey and me, that's a separate window, but each of it's about the audience, not what you're sharing. So it's who you're having the conversation with versus what the content of that conversation is. So hopefully that helps clear it up.
Perfect.
But who you're talking to, that creates the chat, the channel, and then anything you share with that person will be inside that channel. Again, when you add another party or talking to somebody different, that's going to be a different chat.
Yeah. Great demo. Okay. So with that, I don't see any other questions, so let me just move on to telling you guys a little bit about how you can stay involved with the conversation, and as your questions come up, or if you're watching this on the replay, you can get in touch with us. We have a really active discussion that goes on Facebook in the Get Untethered group. The book page on Google Plus is also a great way to reach us, and we post this replay on YouTube. We already discussed how you can get in touch with us on Twitter and obviously through the website as well. We do record all of these sessions, and they're available for replay at the Get Untethered YouTube channel. There's a full playlist there of all the Get Untethered Hangouts. We're up to about 10 of them now, so there's tons of training there that talks to you about how to really utilize Evernote, again, expanding upon the concepts that we have in the book. And we're very excited about next month's topic, which actually this is a great primer for this particular webinar because we're going to talk about upgrading to Evernote Business and how that changes collaboration and sharing and notebook visibility, and really is kind of like an advanced session on what we're discussing here today. So we hope you'll join us for April 16th because a lot of you guys have questions about, what's the difference between premium and business and how does that impact my workflows, and Kristi and I are going to address those issues there as well. So that is our next session, and this is our contact information. Before we sign off, I see one last question about can you delete old chats. I would love that feature, and I have not yet seen that feature. Kristi, have you?
Yes, you can right-click on it and delete it. You can also block someone from chatting with you.
Oh, wow. See, now even I learned something. That would be great. So hopefully that answers your question. We appreciate your participation. And anything else in closing up, Kristi? Or are you just going to go?
I have a date with my scanner, so we got to wrap this up.
All right, this is awesome. Maybe we can have you kind of document the process of getting it set up. Maybe people would be interested in observing that. What do you think?
I feel like there might be a lot of squealing involved, but I'll do my best to hold it together. Yes, I will go through a document.
All right, well, for this edition of Get Untethered, we're Kristi and Stacey, and we thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next month when we talk about Evernote Business. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.